and why we have a performance contract right now, and the caliber of our leaders that we do running these offices were questioned on the floor of the House during the vetting process, where I had mentioned before we took a short break that the ODM chair, John Birdie, had special umbrage with some of the caliber that of the leaders who are being vetted, and he said 60% of them are not really qualified, and we will be smelling a skunk. And now this is the time that we're smelling a skunk. Right, let's just hear from Professor Getile on this as well. So now that we're here, people are saying they're reading politics around it, that the president is reading the Riot Act because, first of all, there is a sort of a dialogue coming up, and he needs to create space. You can see also what we have on the front page of the Star today is all about is Ruto planning a cabinet reshuffle? Survey indicates 72% believe Kenya headed in the wrong direction. That is what the flag is reading there.
I actually don't think so. I think the president is exactly right. He has seen lackluster performance, and he's saying something quite interesting. He's saying the moment I realize I know more than you in your ministry or your department, then I don't need you. See, when we are training managers, there's an hand device we give to the managers, because most of the managers we train, they will be CEO. And they say, well, the moment you achieve executive officer, you never allow yourself to be the most brilliant person in that room. Because the moment you allow yourself to be the most intelligent person in that room, you ruin the organization. What does that mean? Because that is exactly what the president was saying, that if I find that I know more than you in your department, then I don't need you, because you need to be an advisor. So when he was selecting the cabinet, that should have been ringing loudly. That statement he said during the signing of those contracts, it should have run very loudly in his ears. Because you see, when John Mbandi said in the parliament, he said we should reject 60% of this cabinet. But then the president wanted them, so let's give him a skunk. And now, in the president's own admission, they are not measuring, okay, to the power. And you see, after winning an election, what our government does, because you are forming the government of the Republic of Kenya, the loyalty is very good, the people who assisted you are fantastic, but the deliverance becomes fast. So you even go and get the people opposed to you, as long as they have the requisite expertise. You don't allow yourself to be the most brilliant person in that government, because then you collapse the institution.
All right.
Yes.
Dr. Martin.
You see, Dibal, those people the president is complaining about are his own appointees. He is the one who gave them the jobs. It is assumed he had interviewed them, found them competent, and therefore gave them jobs and assigned them the respective portfolios. Now, of course, you hear the only thing he's complaining about is time, so we don't know what else he's saying about them. But he's saying that some know, if he knows more than others. Because if today your producer or somebody behind this KTN would be sitting there and he telling him that he can do this job better, then tomorrow he'll come and sit in your job. And he'll also be perhaps doing analysis from outside. So what the president is doing is giving a vote of no confidence in his own appointees. Now, if I were him, I would not do that in public, because everybody knows I'm the one who gave these people this responsibility. And you know, Moi used to tell us in Kiswahili when now he becomes himself. He says, "Pa alani aliyemuua, lakini analani aliyemwamusha." Do you remember that? So the death of a Pa will not, it will not cast the person who kills them. It will cast the person who then unsettles them from where they start running in order for them to be shot at. The issue here is that the cabinet secretaries and the principal secretaries that we are being told are not performing are people that we should ask the president to tell us where he got them from and what made him prefer them to any other Kenyan, if at all. And therefore, if he has issues with them, I have said this before, that I know that he will have issues with them, and therefore we are waiting for him to say, wait, I've paid the debt, our Meru, our debt, our Luya, whatever it is. He can say, I've now paid those debts, and he'll go back to the people, knowing him. He'll go back to the people, and he'll go back to especially a professor's place. He say, you see, you people, I gave you a job, I gave you your own son, he failed. Sasa mnataka nifanye nini? Nikamwambia aende nyumbani. Sasa nimetafuta wale watu wanaweza kunisaidia kazi. So he paid debts for all those fellows. The only people that he has a debt with, which I don't know whether he has ever planned how to pay, is the hustlers. Because he promised them that this will be their government. That one, I think, is the only debt. But others, he madeni ingine ashalipa. Yeah? So we expect that now he will crack the whip. He'll tell a few people to go home, and he might get his own. Is he planning a cabinet reshuffle? I think he started thinking about it long time ago. It's only a matter of time before we see it. Is he planning to bring in other people who are other than his friends? Maybe. Because you see, if you realize that your friends are letting you down, sometimes you go looking for your not so good friends so that they can help you. Indeed, if this government wanted to succeed, it will not be saying that we are going to hire you because of your loyalty. It will be saying we are going to hire you because of your competence. And I'm one of those people who believes that even if we had all cabinet secretaries from one tribe, as long as they were competent and they were able to deliver, the rest of what we are talking about, diversity, the Kenyan face, will be neither here nor there. What we want is performance. And if it can be performed by just academics from the Senate like ourselves, why not? Mwache tufanye hiyo. Lakini sasa tukisema hiyo mtaanza kusema tunajitetea. Anyway.
In fact, there's a very interesting text I'm getting here from Dr. Duncan Ojwang.
Yes.
And he's saying this to the Stang family in Chick, of course. He's saying, greetings, your panel could decide that Kenyans should kill all the CSs. From the consensus in the panel and from the moderator, they are incompetent, inept, and driving president to suicidal thoughts.
According to us, he says.
According to you. According to you.
But it is Mbos who said it is not us. We are merely quoting the president.
And you know,
the president is on record.
Yeah, he's on record.
I have a lot of respect for Dr. Duncan. The president himself is on record, saying that he called a number of PSS and the CSS who had no clue of what is happening in the ministry. Now we have a brilliant president who sat down, interviewed, and appointed a team of incompetent people. Then you come here and give them performance contracting to deliver on what? You know, you cannot hire an incompetent, then give them performance contracting based on what they're supposed to do.
The result is obvious. They'll fail.
The result is obvious. Tell Duncan to understand that it is not us. It is his president.
And you know, Ndubao, why the president is right, yeah? All the governments which have always succeeded, they succeed in the first year, not the second. When you look at the Chalama in Zambia, when you look at the Mwai Kibaki in Kenya, when you look at this fellow in Malawi, all those people made breakthrough in the first year. But these people now are signing the contract for the second year, not the first year.
Right. There is also the morbid fear that we're talking about from these are public servants. Sometimes they feel stifled because to make decisions, even from procurement point of view, because of the heat that is there and the politicians berating them. We've seen the Public Service Commission with the CS Health on appointment, revocation from the Public Service Commission. We've seen, of course, the flack as we read from the People Daily as well, from Moses Courier, and all these things that are happening right now. In the place of Uongozi Today, now you said that he's an expert of corporate governance. We have a very good document, which is the Uongozi Today, that has the professional ethics, so to speak, of how a state officer should be operating, bringing decorum and respect and honor to his office. Why is that not really being implemented?
You know, Dibal, while the president might have cast aspersion on the capacity of his own officers, I know a number of those people, they have the requisite qualification and experience. What I would want to advise the president is to allow them to work and allow them to form teams so as to be able to synergize. These 10 people that he wants to be running ministries indirectly will be a form of a disaster in the making. I have two examples. One is the dream team that President Moi tried to bring to town. And they came in the ministry that I took over later. Yet they had killed extension service. They had killed research. They had killed field assignments for purposes of retraining the officers, because, you know, management means you must retool the tools all the time. Otherwise, because there are innovations that come in, and that must be passed to the officers for them to be able to offtake to the farmers. So the dream team was one of them. And the other thing is trying to centralize everything in the presidency. By the time I took over the ministry, and these are facts, even ADC was in the office of the president. Even Nyayo Tizo was in the office of the president. And many other departments
poverty was there.
Yes, even this issue of famine relief was in the office of the president. Why? They are very lucrative. ADC, because there were some parcels of land being dished out, so it has to be in the office of the president, so that the decisions are done in the office of the president. Ministry of Agriculture is just informed to ease out certain parcels of land. Why famine relief? Because of distribution of food. You know, if there is somewhere where you can do a lot of corruption without knowledge, is famine relief and queue voting, where you can take away 10,000 bags of maize and you only distribute 2,000. The rest of it you sell. The issue of Nyayo Tizon, it was lucrative because there were so many parcels of land that were going to be eased out of the forest. Some of it, they create some buffer against the forest, and some of it are dished out. So this issue of allowing people who are not directly responsible for decision making in the ministry and day-to-day implementation of the policy is going to destroy this regime. Why? These people do not...
The 10 people?
The 10 people.
Per state department?
Yes, they do not understand. You know, it is the wearer of the shoe who knows where the shoe pinches. And therefore, allow the teams to be formed by the minister, the PS, and the team around him. And once the teams are formed that way and they are given confidence, because the moment you castigate people in public, you have destroyed their confidence. The moment, you know, Kibaki never, you know, he gave me 3 phone calls in the 5 years I was his minister. It is I who used to look for him whenever I thought I needed to brief him on an issue. He called me 3 times, and he was not telling me, come and do this. He was telling me, there is this issue. It was about food situation. It was about defection of one of my colleagues to the orange, and we were in the banana. And another one, it was about the drought that was ravaging the country. That is when we declared drought a national disaster in Mombasa. So, but this president seems to believe he knows everything. The last time I knew about management, and I know managers around this table will know, when you call a meeting in the morning and you have certain agenda to prosecute, just give the agenda and not give your views. Let the views come from these people. Perhaps by the time you listen to everybody, you will have gotten answers without you pronouncing a position that may be wrong, but people will try to massage your ego by ensuring that you are allowed not to look bad. What happened about performance contracting? That was a public gimmick to reinforce the public confidence in this regime. Otherwise, it was not about management performance contracting. It was something else.
But it has been defended also by some legislators that these offices are purely ceremonial.
Which offices?
This cabinet secretary's offices, the figures are purely ceremonial. You have the technical department who are at the engines of this. And one case in point, I remember when they were doing the vetting, they were being questioned why is some of academic qualifications that they had. And they regrettably said, of course, yeah, I failed here, but look, I've put some stamina on this. I've reached this far.
Yeah.
And yet, this is the time we can see the upshot of this particular vetting, that they're unable to deliver.
I say the majority of them are well qualified. But the last time I knew, Winston Churchill was a Form 2 dropout. But he was one of the best prime ministers of Britain. I'm not really promoting mediocrity. When you are at the level of a CS, it is leadership. You don't have to be...
But I think you need to support here. If you want to know the rigors of the high level, the rigors of requirement of a cabinet minister, just look at the American confirmation process. When you are named a minister in America, whether it's agriculture or education, those people come with the tons of all your publications and you put them on the table there. Okay, your expertise in that area,
but
is what confirms you into the American when you are named as Secretary of State in a certain ministry. So expertise you cannot.
Senator, allow us also to talk, because unlike you, who has gone through the rigors of being a professor, I've also gone through the rigors of being a minister.
Exactly.
And during the first performance contracting 20 years ago, my ministry was number 1.
Yeah.
And I was not the most qualified of all the ministers, but I provided effective leadership and allowed people who know the field to do their job and give me the results.
Yes.
Then I got the credit.
Exactly.
So that is where I'm emphasizing. You can be a Form 2 dropout, but you are a good leader.
Yeah.
President Moy,
And you can be an educated fool.
Yeah, and you can also be a very educated fellow who does not allow others to make decisions. You want to make decisions for everybody. President Reagan said the last time he knew, when you get a team of experts, people who know what they are doing, and you give them the latitude of freedom to implement, they will give you better results than if you had not allowed them. Yeah. So the issue is allow people to lead their own ministries. Let them make their own mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah. Even Weke here, if you gave him a chance, he will make mistakes. But allow him to correct his own mistakes. You don't reprimand him in public every afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was not a good gesture.
It was not.
All right. Let's just hear the gesture that we were talking about with the softbox here a bit, where Ruto and Gachagua on their CSs, what we are discussing about the competency as well, briefly.
Niona watu wale wamechelewa, nikaona rais unanini ninamjua. Nikaona uso yake nikajua hapa kimeumana. Sababu leo ni siku ya performance contract. Ile siku muhimu sana ya kuja kuweka. Na wewe umefika pale, rais amekaa. Tayari amekaa na ndiye rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Wewe umechelewa ukiwa kuona nani? Who else have you gone to see?
We have a job because we have a contract. If you cannot keep time with your employer, you have basically dismissed yourself. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
The CS is now expected to explain.
For those who came late, who are members of the executive, I will be expecting a written explanation, and it should not include matters of traffic.
Hata kama iko traffic jam, hii traffic jam haijakuja Kenya leo, inajulikana tangu zamani. Mimi nilifika hapa saa 1:30. PM alifika hapa saa 1:30 na mkutano ulikuwa saa 3. Not because we have no work to do. Si hakuna haja kuamuka hii masaa na hii baridi, tungelala. Lakini tunakuja kwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Our president is spot on time. Then we just have to learn to navigate the traffic.
Many of you, the people I speak to, don't even know what is going on in your ministries or departments. You have very scanty information. The moment I know more than you in your ministry, then you must begin to understand that something is very wrong. I call many PSs. You ask them what's going on here. They have no clue. You are supposed to advise me. Explain to me how you are going to advise me if you have less information than I do.
At times we have tried to hold cabinet committees, we can't. 5, 6, 7, 8 ministers are out of the country. Some change clothes at the airport from one country to another. That is the truth. Why can't you regulate yourself? If the president was to travel and honor every invitation, he will be out of this country the whole year. And if we have to travel, let's travel up country to where wananchi are and explain what we are doing.
There was one lady in one of the roads departments, corrupt to the core, to the extent that she could not be transferred by anybody, even by the minister. If she was transferred, she will go to court, by the court process, and make sure that she's returned. Mr. Kipchumba Murkomen and Bwana Mbogwa, I hope that lady no longer works for the government of Kenya.
All right, this is what we're discussing. And just a moment. We wanted to raise a question on especially traffic.
Yeah.
In this country is where our leaders, they drive on the wrong side of the road every morning with the siren blaring.
But
that cannot be a stop.
That's not official.
That's what I'm saying. We need it also to official. It is not official.
But on this one, if you knew you were going to State House, surely you could go all the to get to be there in time
for that particular day. Yes, since you always float in this particular, it is not official, and it is not even in the traffic rule that any person
apart
should
from
be given
ambulance,
should be
fire
given
brigade,
yes, should be given
and,
that preferential
and
treatment.
Fire brigade and police. No, the rest of us really.
Then why do we get frustrated as Kenyans and we're being harassed with gun-toting, security officers
it is
telling us
wrong.
to?
It is bad manners.
We should not.
That has visited the town.
Yes, and Kenyans should not even pave way for these people if they are running late. And this is the caliber of leader that we have.
You wake up at 5.
Wake up at 5, like any other Kenyans who is on
Why
the road
do
on time.
I
And
arrive
you
here
want
before
them to,
Martin?
Yes.
And he's much younger than me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But can you explain, Martin?
Did you arrive before me?
Today,
All right, I want us just to wrap up on it briefly.
On a serious note, you know, the reason why we opted to have independent ministers from Parliament, other than just the issues of checks and balances, we realized that we needed more capacity. We needed serious expertise to run ministries. We needed people who are capable and able to deliver on the promises of the people of this country. And that is the reason why we realized that the old dispensation, even though you're looking for somebody from Rift Valley, sometimes you'd not get that capacity within Parliament. And that's why we opted for people from outside. Winston Churchill might have been a Form 2 dropout, but he got the right people to run those ministries. He got the right people to run government. He was a Form 2 dropout, but got brilliant people to run government.
And he allowed them to run.
And he allowed them to run.
Yeah.
This one of ours, and this is where the problem is. You know, Kirwa is not saying it clearly. The problem we have is that we have a president who has gotten inept, incompetent people to run ministries. Then where he sits, he does not trust them. He has gotten appointed 10 people in every state department, and those 10 people are the ones advising the minister and the PS on how to run the ministry. And then he tells the ministers and the PSs that don't worry, my 10 people are not going to run government. So basically what the president is trying to do is to run ministries through the back door. And when you get something like that, then you get ministers who are not accountable.
And also they are scared.
And they are scared. They cannot deliver because
they will spend time now bribing these 10 people.
Dealing with these 10 people as opposed to dealing with the people of this country.
And management also, because you said you did management, and I suspect you did, you don't report to 2 bosses.
Absolutely.
It's only one boss. If it is you, Debal, I report to you. I cannot report to you, then I report to Brian here. There will be a lot of conflict.
They've even brought in a lady to be in charge of the police.
What's wrong with the lady?
There is a lady who is a secretary and in charge of the police. So, you know, there is a very big problem in terms of governance in this country. There's a big problem, as Kirwa says, in terms of management.
Yeah. That lady is located in which office?
Which office, you know? Then every day there's something new.
You know, what the president needs to do is to get, if you believe that the minister that you have chosen is competent, allow them to deliver.
Yeah.
Then engage them after a certain period of time and say, these are your indicators, these are your timelines, these are your targets, deliver on this. You don't bring again people to start checking on what the minister is doing.
But could the political reality of the day have contributed to this as well? Because we know in this cabinet there are, it's in the public domain anyway, that there are foot soldiers for some people in the cabinet.
Yeah.
We know in the cabinet there are some girlfriends of some higher people also within government as well that have been brought to be in the cabinet.
The beautiful cabinet secretaries who are women.
Some of the beautiful cabinet secretaries.
They report to him. Yeah, they report to him. Yeah, they report to him. Direct. Even some have children with him.
All right. I think that's. I think that's.
Remember, I was the deputy chair of UDA.
Yes.
So, but I will not say it on air.
But you just said it. Anyway. So that's what I'm saying. There's some of our political intrigues that are actually playing with this particular collection of cabinet secretary as well. But, okay, we need to wind up right now. But I wanted to just hack back on the issue that I think also is very important. Now that we have the dialogue and we've reached at this particular moment, then what are some of the salient issues that should be looked at? Because they're saying some of these issues that is being put down by Azimio, they're not really necessary. And some of these issues like the polling that has already been done in the election, that is done, it will be a home and dry. That should not be a topic of discussion. Issue of gender. Should that be also part of the discussion? Because that is constitutionally very explicit what should be done. It's the honors of the government to do that.
Yeah, when you look at what UDA, what the Kenya Kwanza government says, what they say is the point of discussion, the only point for discussion there is only one, is the IBC. All the others are taken again by the law. I mean, if they want to establish the office of leader of the opposition, if they wanted to legalize the office of the cabinet of the prime minister, because it's already there, to the agenda. These are issues which are supposed to be brought in both by parliament and the public, because most of them may require a referendum. If you change the structure of government, you may require a referendum. So, now when you look at the Azimio requirements, one is the cost of living, and this is where I think both of them are wrong. The cost of living as an issue, cost of living is what is called a symptom of a disease. You see, treating the symptom is not the same as treating the disease. The cost of living is as a result of economic mismanagement. It's a result of corruption. Okay? It's a result of government wastage. It's a result of bad economic policies. That point should be discussed, because I believe the government can actually benefit from intermarriage of ideas. In fact, if there is a national dialogue or looking at the cost of living, because there has been rising and rising, then it's possible for the government to translate some of this discussion into policy. So that is a point for discussion. Now, these people also talking about police brutality. I think we're trying to reform the police, but we didn't reach anywhere, in my opinion, because what I saw on the screens was scary. You see, what has happened over time is the police were in two groups during the Muzungu days, the colonial days. You had the admission police, whose job was to clobber the Africans and collect the taxes. Then you had the regular police, whose job was to protect the European. So when the Muzungu left, the black Muzungu came in, these people are still protecting the black Muzungu, not the Kenyans. So when there is a demonstration is called and you call to the police, when they see these people, they see the enemies of state, because the wiring, the mental wiring has not been wired.
I don't want us to hark back on the demonstrations.
Okay. So,
I think
I'm just explaining. I'm saying that there are some areas for these negotiations which are really necessary, and there are some areas which are not necessary. Now, let me finish by saying this. Do I think these negotiations will actually conclusively deliver us? I want to say the answer is no. I'll be surprised actually if even it take up, because when you have proposals, basically, like two-handed gender thrown in there.
Yeah.
When you have proposal like creating the cabinet, prime cabinet, which will take people to a referendum. Even the leader of the opposition, I'm very sure, and I think my colleague here will tell us, even that may require a referendum, because you are changing the structure,
it will require a
structure of government. When you bring that and you are supposed to finish that discussion in 1 month, and it's 5 people discussing, it's not a Ambomas type conference, then you are not serious. So I'm looking for seriousness, and seriousness, I'm not seeing it. I think the opposition may be serious because they need a solution to the problem they have been demonstrating and canvassing about. But I think the Kenya Kwanza government believes that it's in power, and it is in power legally, legitimately aside, but legally it is in power. There's no question about that. And they see whatever is happening from the opposition as a nuisance. And I can tell you, by the teams they have formed, one team produces very credible Kenyans. I mean, Kalonzo Musyoka is a former vice president, is a diplomat of international repute, given his role in the South Sudan peace and so on, the chair. And then the Kenya Kwanza matches that with the Gemani Chungwa. And now you want to tell
what's so
me?
wrong? No, but what? No.
No. You know, there is a level of seriousness. If you take me very seriously, honestly, maybe if they appointed somebody like
the way we take you seriously, there's no way we can match you with the brand. We will give you a professor.
So my friend, so I want to
know. But if you talk that,
I'm not disparaging.
It is disparaging.
I'm just looking as a negotiator.
And it is reductive of you to say, because he's the majority leader of the National Assembly, and we need to respect that. They have sat down as a committee, and they've decided this is a man who's going to represent us. You cannot.
Kenya Kwanza has more stock.
No,
people like Musalia Mudavandi, I believe, or even maybe even the speaker is a neutral person. Even there are people you undertake to this negotiation if you really want it to move, and I can tell you there will be a deadlock. I foresee that because of that measurement.
But when you come to and you look at the nature of the leaders that have been selected, you're talking about a diplomat and the hardliner. They have a
I didn't say about underliner. I'm just looking at the stock of experience, the difference in terms of knowledge, knowledge levels. You see, in negotiation in Dubai, you need to understand negotiation that produce results. They require mutual respect. Respect, mutuality.
All right, thank you.
They require that.
Let's say from Martin.
The issues here are that, and you know my position, I am not for talks. I have maintained that there is no framework for these talks. They are not going anywhere. So let's not waste public resources and time. Let the government find solutions for cost of living, which we might like or may not like. Let the Kenyans decide when they come to the referendum or the elections. Let them decide whether the government performed or not. The guys outside government should use other means available to them to continue to express their dissatisfaction. Indeed, if I was to be asked, I should let this government run its programs, fail, then I can bring counter proposals and alternatives for the next election, so that opposition should be building up the agenda for campaign, not sitting to discuss with people who have said they have no problem. In fact, they have said the issue of cost of living is not an issue. The issue of finance is sub judice, it's in the court. So they are not going to discuss this.
They've not said it's not an issue. They've said that is the province of the government. So there is no room for having advisors on how they should be told to address the cost of living. So it's not that,
and that's what I'm saying.
Slighting the cost of living.
That's what I'm saying. Let the government run its programs. Let the opposition oppose the government's programs, but oppose them with strategies.
All right.
Not to go and sit under these discussions will not help us. They are extra legal. They have no constitutional framework. They will lead us the BBI route, and again it will fail. So let's not even go there.
Then we'll run to courts again to challenge that particular. So we've been through this circus before, and I think Kenya and all the wise are now.
Yes, I think let's not belittle this discussion. Now, Martin is starting to sound like this government.
On this one, I'm
like
now,
now,
the government.
This government, sometimes I fail to understand it. Now they are saying that Treasury sees to lose job if the cost of living stays high. They have dealt with the issue. Now,
that's what I raised.
You have a situation where the amount of taxes you're taxing Kenyans, fuel cost is now at the all-time high, and you've created a law where now you are taxing people 16% on fuel. VAT. Surely I feel sorry for Ndungu. What will Ndungu do to change that? Yet he's a minister. Does he need to change the law to bring it down to 8%? Yes. Because you say you will lose your job
if
you don't tell it. If you don't, and yet you have a law that is taxing Kenyans and ensuring that guaranteeing the cost of living stays high. Yeah. Last week I was in Tanzania, and I was very shocked. We bought fuel at 150 last week. I bought rice at 135 from there, very good quality. I bought unga at 110, Chaguo la Mama, at the border.
Chaguo la Mama.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, this is a neighboring country. We share a border with them here in Namanga, towards Lunga and in Nyanza. Why are we being charged a lot for certain commodities?
But you should have said,
why is the cost of living high in our country, yet when you move next door, the cost of living is low?
Wait.
And those are questions we have to ask ourselves.
And the answers are here.
Martin, I want to teach you. Because sometimes you forget. The same constitution that you keep on referring to as a lawyer, a serious advocate, a teacher, a scholar, constitution, it was as a result of people sitting down and discussing. It was as a result of this, the so-called you're calling extraordinary means, extrajudicial meetings, extra constitution. That is why you have counties where now resources are being taken all the way to the ground. That is the reason why you have institutions that are serious within the constitution. That is why you have the Bill of Rights, that we can come here and speak freely without being arrested. So do not sit here and really look like an wait, and forget the things that have happened.
I'm not apologizing to anybody. Wait, I'm saying this
without facts.
Wait, I'm saying this.
Yeah.
There is no basis in law or the constitution to have national dialogue the way it's contemplated. That one, if you have, show me. I've said that one. Number two, yes, because then we overhauled it.
What was the basis for the handshake?
I'm coming to that. The handshake had no legal basis.
Yes, it has.
No basis,
but we saw it happened at the end
of the day. It was no legal basis. It led us to BBI.
So it was extra legal.
But you know the BBI.
It was extra legal.
Yeah, it was no basis.
What will be diametrically different from this particular
I'm coming to this, but
this is what you're talking
don't
about.
derail me first. When you say that you went to Tanzania and you saw the cost of those products are down, you are not telling us that the reason why our costs are high is because of taxation. If we remove taxes from our fuel, it will be as cheap. Number one. Number two, you have not told us.
With that.
So wait a minute. What I'm saying is
in trouble.
What I'm saying, those people have not put taxes on their fuel. That's why the fuel is down.
Exactly.
So when you are saying bring down fuel, if we bring down the cost, fuel will come down.
Martin, that is what I'm saying.
The government is telling you that look, those guys build SGR in Tanzania at a less cost than we did. As we did it bigger and we have to repay, and to pay we need taxes to pay it. So you must sleep. You made your bed, lie in it. You have an appetite to borrow and to use it, to borrow expensively, you must also tax expensively to pay. So, I mean, that's the point. We cannot have our cake and eat it.
Right. Also, we're not forgetting that as a country, we rebased our economy. And so when we rebased our economy, we cannot be treated the same in the region as well. That's now, we are an emerging economy. Some of these loans, opportunities that these other countries can actually access, they are the least developed countries around us. That also is coming to bite us.
Kenya is number 21 in Africa in terms of the human index, human development index. So we are not the best. We are number 21.
No, but we are above in East Africa.
Okay,
let's see from Kip.
There are two things I would advise Professor, because he lives in Kajiado, to be going to Arusha, fuel and come back. It is cheaper for you. Yes. Because fuel is 50 shillings cheaper in Tanzania than in Kenya. I want to advise also Dr. Martin Olo that IPPG was not within the constitution, because national conversation can be done outside, but now once we agree on certain distilled issues, we anchor it on the constitution. And the fact that we are bringing 10 issues to the table does not mean that we are going to discuss all of them. There is part of the situation of storming, looking at the issues that we can discuss and the issues that we can remove as non-issues. And once we reach there, there shall be some kind of consultation. To agree with Professor here, Professor Naituli, it is true, Kenya Kwanza is not interested in any talk. And I think Martin is giving their job, is been given a job to water down the talks.
The talks.
Yeah, because
I am not for talks.
Because you can say, it's very serious.
What we are saying, it is a brief.
Them they have agreed to talk. They have appointed, but they have appointed a committee on that side. You guys have appointed a committee on that.
But they will
I am
scatter.
saying you want to waste our money.
They will scatter.
Yeah, but you want to waste our money. So I'm not for talks.
You're not for talks. It's a wastage of money.
Waste of money.
We want to wind up with the issue. I want to hark back to the issue of the retirement age. We were at 55 before.
Yes.
We went to 60.
Yes.
And the reason we went to 60 was because there was no pension money to pay these retirees.
Yes.
That was the reason. Now, we are having the same specter of, or almost, is it 85,000 public servants who are bound to be retiring? It's a crisis in the making. Can we connect the dots on why there is now this particular provision that is being forwarded that the retirement age should be back to 55? And this was why there was no money to pay for the pensioners. That's why
and there's still no money.
And there's still no money.
So
if we go to 55, it's even exacerbating and compounding the problem. Is it the case? Maybe you can just chime in a bit.
That's the case. You see, it makes no sense to argue that if you retire people at 55, it will create room for more jobs. The people you're talking about, you want to retire, are more experienced and they are more useful productively for you, even at where they are, than the younger people coming in because of their other demographics. That said, we should not be talking about reduction. It will burden the pension.
It will burden the pension. And this is the administration that is saying also the young people should be going outside to look for jobs.
You see, what this implies is we don't even know how jobs are created. Jobs are not created by people who are retiring. Jobs are created by expansion in production.
But so you cannot underestimate the power of this, because President Macron is being held at ransom because of pension.
No, you see, that's a different. Macron is a different situation. He wants to increase retirement by 2 years. Now, the reason why those people are rioting because they don't want 2-year increment is because in France, if you retire, they stop taking taxes from your salary. Okay, you get your gross. You take home gross. Now that's a serious burden to the government, but to the retirees, if it increases, they are losing those 2 years of enjoyment of their full salary. So it's actually totally different from here. So we are not spending. What we are saying though is, even in that proposal, is an indication that we have no clue how employment is created. Employment, first of all, is not even created by public service. Because public service is a consumer of resources. It does not create employment. Employment is created by the private sector in industrial production, expansion of production. Because it's the same thing you hear the president is saying that if there is free fertilizer and there is more maize produced, the price will go down as a result of that. Not necessarily so. Because there is a lot of inputs which come to producing that kilo of maize other than the fertilizer. But not just that, it's the cost of living about maize. You understand?
No.
So we are not interrogating our problems appropriately. And you know, we were just discussing about the PhD here. The way you get this thing is you must define your problem properly. When your problem is defined properly, it's absorbed. Because now you know exactly what to look for. So we have not defined our problem properly. Retirement is not going to solve unemployment, they may even increase it. Because the people now, the government technocrats, with the higher stock of knowledge, are more likely to propose good policies.
Indeed, thank you.
Which will now lead to expansion in production and therefore more employment.
All right, time to wind up. Let's begin with you, Martin. It's the same government that is also recalling the retirees to go back because they are you see, because the lack of capacity, there was no mentoring that was done. So they went with all the expertise, and now the government is recalling them back as well. Briefly, your closing remarks.
You see, what we are dealing with here, Dibali, is that we are going against the grain. If you look at other developed countries, look at the US and so on, the guys who are taking on contracts and the guys who are working for the US government, the USAID, are in their 60s and above. And they are getting even more productive as it is. As we are talking the opposite, we are undermining our own selves by taking on policies that do not necessarily add up. So what Professor here today is saying, which I have agreed with him, in fact, for once we are very much in agreement, is that these are superficial attempts to address very complex issues. The issue of employment needs to be seen in a larger way. The issue of cost of living is not about wonga and maize harvest. How many people eat ugali anyway? Yeah, so it's a bit more complex.
Thank you.
Let's not simplify.
Right.
I want to assist Martin. Kenyans eat 50 million bags of maize. On average, around this table, we eat 100 kilos, each one of us, every year. On average.
100 kilos?
100 kilos of maize. So maize is a very serious factor. But also, to agree with Professor Naituli, is that there is serious issue. This fertilizer has been hyped so much, and yet fertilizer forms only 7% of the total cost of production on average in Trans Nzoia. To produce in 1 acre is between 35 to 40,000. So when you talk of fertilizer, which is 200, you are saving only 5,000. Just do the percentage, you realize about 7%. So it is not entirely true. What this regime needs to do is to do what Martin has said, define the problem.
All right.
Once you define the problem and you know exactly what the problem is, you will get the solution.
Right, that's plagiarism. This define the problem was from Professor.
He assigned it to me, which I agree.
But that's not plagiarism.
I should have asked. We need to take you to a school,
You can see he's now harassing you. I said he came with vengeance. He harassed him, he harassed me, he harassed Weke. Now he's harassing you.
No. What you just said, I think that the definition of a problem was from Professor.
No, he said he wants to take you to
You are citing Martin. Martin, don't give him Martin the credit.
I'm taking the credit.
Closing remarks.
Just for purposes of information, the retirement age in Europe is around 62. The retirement age in America is around 66. Now, the problem that we have in Kenya, there is a very huge population of young people who are not employed. And that is the reason why you're seeing we are trying to exit the older people quite early so that we can bring in young people on board. But my closing remarks, I want to implore Martin. He's a good man. Martin, there is nothing wrong in people talking. Yeah, that is the reason why we are seated on this table and we are talking. And the Constitution allows us to talk regardless. If you look at the history of this country, in 1997, IPPG people sat and talked, and they introduced that particular provision that allowed for multipartism. In 2007, when the country was burning, people sat down and talked. And that is the reason why we have a constitution.
Thank you.
When we sit down and talk, we move the mountain.
Thank you.
So there is nothing wrong in us sitting and talking, Martin.
Thank you.
Relax, chill,
I'm relaxed.
enjoy the talks.
Right.
Wait for the outputs.
And the good Lord is calling on you. Come, let us reason together. You cannot reason together without talking.
Yes.
A good place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. I really enjoyed the conversation this morning on a raft of issues. A lot of consequential issues that we discussed. Thank you very much. You've been watching Uongozi Today, where we keep them accountable. Of course, looking from the matters academia and also in government. Thank you also for your valid company this morning. News Diary is up next. Don't go away.